Have you ever had a perfect revenge moment? Back in 1997, my stepdad worked as an operations manager at a small company that did telecommunications work, basically helping other companies set up phone and internet systems. That summer, he helped me get a job there. I was just looking for a way to make some money and gain experience, but I ended up liking the work. I learned quickly and stayed longer than I had planned. It turned into a real career. About 4 months into the job, something unexpected happened. My stepdad and the owner of the company had a small disagreement, nothing major, just a simple misunderstanding. But instead of talking it out, the owner fired my stepdad. My stepdad had worked hard, managed the team well, and truly cared about the business. It felt unfair. Since we have different last names, most people didn't know we were related, so I kept my head down and kept working. I needed the job, and I thought maybe I could stay out of the drama. But honestly, I had my own problems with the company too. They weren't paying me correctly, and they didn't give me the benefits they had promised. Still, I stayed for about a year and a half longer before I finally left for a better opportunity. Eventually, I got hired by a large telecommunications company, one that we had actually worked with in the past. Over time, I moved up and got promoted. One of my new responsibilities was hiring outside contractors, construction companies who did the physical work, like laying cables or building out systems. These contracts were a big deal. A single project could be worth anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000, and I handled about 20 to 30 projects a year. That meant whoever got hired could make a lot of money. One day, completely out of the blue, I got a phone call from someone I hadn't thought about in years. It was the owner of the old company where my stepdad and I had worked, the same guy who had fired my stepdad over something small and never apologized. He didn't recognize me at all. He said he wanted to talk about getting added to my list of approved contractors and suggested we meet for lunch. I agreed because I was curious. He chose a fancy restaurant I'd always wanted to try but couldn't justify spending money on. At the lunch, he gave me his best pitch. He talked about how great his company was, how they always finished jobs on time, how well they treated their workers, and how much experience they had. He even dropped the names of other companies he'd worked with to show how reliable he was. I just smiled and listened. Then I said, "I actually used to work for your company." He looked a bit confused and tried to act polite. Clearly, he didn't remember me. Then I asked, "Do you remember the guy who hired me?" He nodded and said, "Yeah, I remember him." So I said, "He's my stepdad." The look on his face completely changed. You could see the shock and panic in his eyes. Suddenly, he knew exactly who I was and exactly what this meant. I let the moment sink in. Then I smiled and said, "Thanks for lunch. I really appreciate the time. Unfortunately, the list of contractors I use is already full with more capable teams, but I'll keep your company in mind if anything changes." We wrapped up the meal. I paid my part of the bill, thanked him again, and walked out. I never heard from him again. It felt like a small bit of justice. The same man who had fired my stepdad so quickly, who didn't treat people right, was now sitting across from me asking for work, and I had the power to say no. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just said no with a calm voice and a full stomach.